course, Pastor John Wesley Ngu of City Ministry, who's also joining us from a City Center studio. And Pastor Wesley, thank you so much for joining us on KTN News Center. What do you have to say about that third situation that happened on Saturday?
Well, I want to say it is very sad to read about that and to hear about what happened in Nakuru, because it's definitely is not in line with the law of HIV, AIDS, and prevention and control. But of course, there are dynamics that are important to be taken on matters to do with HIV testing that must not be compulsory when required by the church. But of course, on advice, generally we will ask the couple to be able to go through the testing for their own information, so that at least they may be informed, because we realize that, of course, if they become privy of that information after marriage, it brings a lot of conflict. But it is not, I don't think it is right, and of course it's illegal or unlawful for the church to demand that they must reveal their status to the pastor or to any other person.
All right, Jane, let me bring into the conversation. I don't know what you have to say about this incident. I mean, wedding had been planned for since May to November. Those are 7 months. Last minute, the pastor says, no, I cannot wed you despite providing 2 medical reports.
Well, Brenda, the whole scenario, I must say, and sadly so, it is a very, very unfortunate scenario. From where I'm standing, from a legal perspective, the actions of the pastor in issue are illegal, unacceptable, and I think, to say the least, it is immoral for him to have done that. Looking at all the issues at hand is that we are talking about marriage, we are talking about HIV and AIDS related concern, but be as it may, the law only recognizes certain scenarios where an officiating minister can decline to unite a couple in holy matrimony or in marriage, as it were. The Marriage Act that governs marriage in Kenya provides only certain, and it's very specific, unless the age rules you out, unless you are within certain family relations that you are not allowed to marry in law, unless there's no consent, amongst others, going for HIV and AIDS test and availing those results is not one of the reasons that the Marriage Acts provide for you to be allowed to marry. I tend to read a lot of ignorance from the side of this pastor. Then looking again at the HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Act of 2006, I mean, you superimpose the 2 acts together, the Marriage Act together with the HIV Prevention and Control Act. Honestly, you'd see the pastor is completely and extremely out of order, because it is an offense for anyone to force me to undertake HIV and AIDS. And making the whole scenario even ugly and worse is that this is being done on the last day of the wedding. Look at the calling and the announcement of the wedding banns. This is done to give couples time in case there's any impediment that would make them not be entitled to be joined in holy matrimony or in marriage, as it were. It's giving them notice. And it said if anyone has a reason, legal reason, why the two should not be joined in marriage.
Jen, let me just cut you short, and I'd like us to look at our Super Bowl this morning, because both of you, that is Pastor Wesley Ngu and yourself, both of you have raised an important conversation here, and that is the HIV Control Act. And when I look at that, it's going to be on our Super Bowl just in a few minutes, and it is that Section 13 of that act prohibits any person to be, let me just take it again, it is the prohibition against compulsory testing And Section 13 of the HIV and AIDS Control Act stipulates that no person shall be compelled to undergo an HIV test as a precondition to or for the continuous enjoyment of employment, marriage, admission to any educational institution, entry into or travel out of the country, or with the provision of healthcare insurance cover or any other service. So why is the church compelling couples to undergo HIV test, Pastor Wesley Ngu? Does it mean, then it means that the church is going against the law?
I think we have to separate matters to do with the requirements for marriage, but also counseling, because I think those two must be distinguished. In matters of counseling, when we are counseling couples, we normally will ask them so many things. We'll ask them, to discuss matters to do with where one comes from, the customs, that the person comes, so that they may be able to agree. Does this custom and this custom agree too well? Do we need to understand our ages? All those things is a matter of counsel. And the church comes from the perspective that it is important for the two people to understand and to know their status. Now, if it becomes a requirement that somebody must give before they get married, that is contravening this law, definitely.
But Pastor
if
Wesley,
you ask the couple, it is important. Yes.
Pastor Wesley, let me just cut you short. The question is, we've seen so many churches making it mandatory for couples who are planning to get married to undergo this test. So what happens if a couple fails to bring to the church this test? Will the church go ahead and join this couple?
I think I'm just saying, as a matter of law, brother, as a matter of law, it is not a requirement that they must bring it to the pastor for the pastor to wed them. But it is important for them to do the test for each of the two concerned persons to know their status, and so that they may know they are entering into marriage. Because again, I think it's also against the law for one to be able to infect another person unknowingly. So, but that we only leave it to the couple. And once the couple has established that they know their status, then it is not upon me to force them. If they want to go blindly into it and we have given them counsel, then that is it. But as I am mentioning here, definitely, the law has come very clearly that I cannot compel them before I marry them.
So Jen, if I may ask you, isn't this not infringing on the right of a person? Because once I get my medical test and I take it to the pastor, isn't it not infringing on my human rights?
Definitely it is. Definitely it does. Under the new dispensation of the Constitution, every Kenyan is protected by the law. I have my freedom of choice. The fact that I chose to worship in that church, it doesn't mean that I surrender the Bill of Rights that I enjoy under the Constitution. But looking at it again from another perspective, my question is, what if the couple was found to be HIV positive? Does it mean then the church would have not allowed them to be joined in marriage? I think I have a lot of problem with one Jesse Karanja. And I also have a problem that he has abused powers that have been donated to him at the point where he becomes a marriage minister. I don't think it is his church which has donated those powers to him, because he becomes a marriage officer, and that power has only been donated to him by the government of Kenya. And for him to be licensed to be a marriage officer, he needs to understand, or he needs to have understood his role and the law that is attendant to that role that is supposed to perform. So from where we are right now, I think we owe that couple an apology, and action should be taken. In no uncertain words, I think one, John Karanja, I hesitate referring to him as apostle because his actions really did not even move or border next to a man of God. What he did to that young couple that actually invited him to be able to unite them in marriage, I find it unforgivable, and he should be given a chance to explain. As a lawyer, I think he should be sued so that he can file his defense why he did that.
All right.